Hi, I'm Jessica, and when I'm not drinking all the coffee, watching Razorback sports, or hanging out with my family of boys, it's my passion to help elementary music teachers just like you find your unique teaching style. My goal with this podcast is to share helpful tips, strategies, and to give you the motivation you need to gain momentum in your teaching so you can continue being the music teacher rock star you already are. In this podcast, I love to talk to elementary music teachers just like you, who are teaching music every day and facing the same challenges and wins that you are. I'm so excited about today's guest, Stacey Garrepy. She's in her third year of teaching elementary music at a classical Christian school, while also in her third year in the PhD program at UNC Greensboro. Today, we're going to have conversations about what it's like teaching and pursuing a postgraduate degree at the same time, and we'll also talk about what it's like to teach music with a limited budget and how you can teach music even if you find yourself in this situation. Through the course of our conversation, we found out we both went to ORU and had no idea about that when we scheduled this interview. What a small world. If you're an elementary music teacher and you'd like to come on to talk about your story and becoming an elementary music teacher and what challenges and wins you're facing in your teaching journey, I'd love to have you. Simply email me at jessica@thedomesticmusician.com for the details. Okay, let's jump right in with today's episode. All right, well, welcome back. And I'm so excited today to have Stacey Garrepy on our podcast, and she has so much insight to share with us. As you could hear from her intro, she has a lot of wisdom, things to share, and things that are work for her. And also, just being in graduate school and also pursuing her PhD, she has so much to offer about that. That if other music teachers are curious about how to teach and to also pursue a graduate degree, this is the perfect podcast episode for you to listen to. And so with all that said, Stacey, I introduced you a little bit in the intro, but if there's anything else you want to tell us right now, go for it. And then we'll jump right in with questions.
Sure. Well, I didn't take the traditional route into teaching. I have my bachelor's in sacred music, actually, from Oral Roberts University. And I joke with people that I didn't find teaching, it found me, because I ended up getting my master's at University of Oklahoma and ended up with an assistantship in the music ed department. And that sowed a lot of really good seeds that are only coming up to fruition now. So long story short, I kind of did a roundabout journey to get where I am right now as a music teacher.
Oh, that's good. I like that, though. I like when I hear different stories of how people kind of figure out, like you said, music teaching found you. I think that's great. You may not know this, by the way, but I went to ORU as well. So small world. Yes. Isn't that crazy? Yes. So I got my music ed degree from there in 2004. I know. We didn't even know this about each other before we started recording. I think that's so awesome. What a small world.
In 2004. I literally came in as a freshman in 2005.
Oh my goodness. That's so funny. Wow. Well, you guys see, you can connect with other music teachers. You just don't even know when you're going to find some commonalities. Okay. So I like to start every interview by asking, what is your favorite thing about teaching music? I know there's so many to choose from. You can say more than one too.
Well, since I teach at a classical Christian school, I always tell my students that I want them to use music to love God and love each other better. And I feel like in that sense, I get to help them become better humans in the process. Yeah. And I told, in fact, Monday in my class, was looking at a group of, I think it was fifth graders. And I said, look, I don't do this so that I can turn you into a bunch of little me's. I don't want to turn you into a bunch of music teachers. I do this because I want you to sing lullabies to your children and to sing and be active in your church and in your community and to be musical people and to steward the gift of music that you've been given.
That's good. That's good. I like that answer. Okay, so you have already answered in your intro how many years you've been teaching. And then I've already asked you what your favorite thing about teaching music is. But so I want to just go ahead and start right in. We have some awesome conversation coming from this. So
you wanted to talk a little bit today about how to teach with a limited budget. And so I have shared my story before and how I started teaching with a limited to no budget, or I guess I should say no budget to a limited budget. So do you have any advice about this for someone who is going through this situation right now, or who will maybe go through it again during another school year?
My first advice is the same advice that Harry Wong gives when he talks with teachers about classroom management, which is to beg, borrow, and steal. He said teachers are the biggest thieves in a good way.
Yeah.
And to begin to outsource your questions to other music teachers and or to areas in your community where, a church may have a set of ORF instruments, for example, that have been sitting there that you might be able to say, hey, make connections there and say, hey, I'm a music teacher at X school. Is it possible to make use of some of your instruments that are sitting resting? Things like dollar stores to make instruments and to find things for your classroom, and found materials are some things that I've found really helpful, as well as communicating your need to others. Sometimes it's really hard for us to look at people and say, yeah, my budget is about $200, which really it is. And so that people know that there's a need there, and when they're in a place where they can give, they can, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. I like how you said too with finding resources at churches, because I think so many times music teachers just, there's music stores like West Music where, you order instruments from, or other schools where maybe they have instruments, put away. But I think a lot of times that music teachers, especially that don't have budgets or any resources to work with, they don't know that you can look at places like churches as well, who, like you said, have instruments buried away somewhere they're not using.
And some of them, want to be able to free up the space, or they, it's all about building relationships and fostering those with people within your community. So, that's what I found to be most helpful.
That's good. Yeah. And I like it, as you said too, just as simple as the dollar store. There's so many hidden treasures there. You just don't even realize that you can find many teaching resources in a dollar store too.
So one of my favorite things that was a dollar store like resource. Actually, it was in my cabinet when I first came in, and I thought, how am I going to use these? Were little circular dots that were like little plastic circles, and there were maybe, I think, 15 in about 4 colors, and they were about maybe 3 inches in diameter. And I thought, where am I going to use these? I have no idea what to do with these. And then all of a sudden the idea came to me, like to put a 2 lines on the carpet to make them into Soul Me lines. I took those color-coded dots and I put, using masking tape, Soul and Me, and I think Do and La on them. So now we use them for interactive composition activities in the classroom. And all it is literally just masking tape with 2 lines on the floor, and the kids can help kind of construct them where they are.
That's amazing. I think that is so great, because I think I've said this before. I think it's so great when you can have a lot of resources at your disposal, but for those of us that don't or haven't, or someone who's listening to this who's in college right now and they're going to go into a school like that, honestly, I've said this before, just teaching your kids music is the main goal, singing, and everyone has a body. But then even resources like you just said, I remember using popsicle sticks to create rhythms on the floor. I mean, that's so simple, and those things are so cheap. I mean, I don't know how many come in a bag, but 100 for, I don't know, a few dollars. I can't off the top of my head remember, but
also Michael's gives teacher discounts. They, and especially after Christmas, all the ribbons on sale. So to make things like ribbon streamers, I've done that really, really cheaply, and it's just amazing what you can do with a little bit of money and a little bit of creativity. And sometimes you have to outsource that creativity to others as well and say, look, I found this at Michael's. What can I make with it?
Yeah. If you're anything like me and you're not artsy, that's my main problem is I can't draw to save my life. So
I can't either.
Outsourcing. My handwriting. Sorry, what were you going to say?
That's okay. My handwriting resembles much more Crazy Professor than it does sweet elementary music teacher, but
hey, that's okay. That's okay. Okay. So do you find that sometimes new music teachers get stuck because they compare their classrooms to all the other ones around them who have instruments and teaching materials?
Oh, absolutely. And I fall into that trap too. Every time I'm pulling out my really cruddy glockenspiels that were cheap, $50 glockenspiels, and I see people who got grants and they have sonar instruments, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just have to pull myself back and say, stop. You are blessed where you are. And I think cultivating that sense of I'm grateful to be here. I get to do what I love. I get to do what I was trained to do on a daily basis, and I get to invest in young people in a regular basis. And I may not have as many materials to do it with, but I'm thankful that I'm here right now, and I can appreciate what somebody else does without necessarily letting that make me feel less secure. I think it's, even as teachers, we want to cultivate growth mindsets in our children, but it's very difficult as teachers sometimes to cultivate that same growth mindset in ourselves, where somebody else's successes and their resources and things that they've acquired don't become threats to us. I see that as inspiring rather than something to be threatened by.
That's good. Just being confident in who you are, because every different music teacher is unique. We all have different personalities, different skill traits, different, like you said, resources. And I really do feel like every music teacher, or every teacher period, is called to be where they are for a reason. And, and so it's okay if your classroom doesn't look like someone else's, because, and I've liked this phrase too, where I'm not the one that came up with it, but I say it a lot, where your beginning will not look like someone else's middle or end, because it's just not going to. You don't know where they started, and it's okay to not know where they started. But I think that's good. Just having confidence is huge. So are there other suggestions you have for ways teachers can find confidence, and even if they don't have a lot of resources at their disposal?
I think going to things like your regional conferences is so key. Even if you end up having to scrimp a little bit and save to get to go to your regional conference because the funding through your school is not there. For example, I'm in North Carolina right now, and NCMEA every year is just, it's fabulous. It's such a wonderful time for re-energizing and getting new ideas from people and gaining confidence in what you're doing. I think also sometimes we can tend to pull in on ourselves when we have problems or we're under-resourced. And I think taking the time to invest in somebody else, getting involved with things like I'm a general music teacher Facebook group or elementary music teachers Facebook group, and helping out and extending beyond yourself to somebody else really helps you to avoid that sort of navel gazing stance that we can sometimes get ourselves into. Because
that's good.
It's really good to invest in others and to pour into others as well when we feel like we want to just pull inward.
Yeah, I think that's good. And it's so easy, I feel like, on social media just to not to view people as real people. What I mean by that is just you see names, but you don't know these people in real life. And so, but just remembering all these music teachers in those groups you mentioned, they're real teachers just like you, and they have real struggles, real wins, real classrooms, real students. And sharing your wins and struggles, that's a vulnerable place. Places like that and conferences where you can get to know music teachers who really do understand, maybe not every exact situation you've gone through, or your exact classroom, but they do understand what it's like to be a music teacher.
Right. And I think we too often, we don't build bridges where we should, or we get so busy trying to build our own kingdoms that we forget that we're all in this together. And that may sound a little bit pie in the sky, but I really think that cultivating that attitude of we're all in this together is hugely helpful, and minimizing that sort of sense of competition or inward competition can only bring good in the end. Because we want to reduce that in our children, and we want them to be collaborative when they're together. And I think that starts from the attitude of the teacher.
I like how you said inward competition, because a lot of times it is just inward. It's not even, you think some of these other teachers are competing, or you're competing against them, but sometimes it's just the inner voices and the inner thoughts you're having that's bringing you down and bringing your confidence down, because a lot of times these teachers are not thinking about you what you think they are. It's, I feel like that's true. I've had to preach that to myself so many times too. And so, okay, so let's shift gears right now. So first of all, you already have a graduate degree, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're currently pursuing your PhD, which is amazing. I am just so impressed. And so I would love to hear any advice for someone who is wanting to pursue a graduate degree or go on to pursue their PhD while they're also wanting to still teach music.
So that's
Just tell us all the things.
Sure. So that's been a bit of a rough, it's been a rough road. I'm not going to lie. It's been a rough road. Because I constantly feel divided between the school and my K-6 students and my I do have one small 7-8 middle school chorus. And sidebar, I'd really much rather deal with boogers and drama of kindergarten than the hormones and drama of middle school. But
it's a special calling.
It's a place for me to grow as a teacher. And
yes, that's a good way to put it.
It's been tough. I have a very supportive husband who is the primary breadwinner in the house because Lord knows teaching doesn't rake in a whole lot, and teaching at a Christian school is even lower pay than our public school colleagues. But yeah, having a supportive community. I also have a supportive church community who's in whom I can confide. And the community here at UNC Greensboro has also been incredibly collaborative. I would say if you're going on to graduate work, make sure you take in the culture of the Mus Ed department there whenever you're going to check out schools. And what I mean by that is the culture one of collaboration, of a desire to finish? Is the culture one that's going to support you if you're pregnant or parenting while you are going through your degree? Because for a lot of us, our profession is predominantly female, and a lot of us do have these questions as we're going through. Are they supportive of families? Or is it a culture that is so focused on research that you're going to feel like you lose who you are and your identity there? I'm thankful to be here at UNC Greensboro. They've been incredibly accommodating to me as I straddle those two worlds. And I'm not the only one in my program who also is currently working and going to get your PhD program. And they don't intentionally put barriers up to finishing. And unfortunately, that's not the case in all situations and in all graduate institutions. So I would say, make sure that you investigate the culture and go with a place that is supportive. Don't underestimate that. The classes are going to be great, but really what's going to get you through is knowing that you've got supportive mentors and a culture that supports you getting out and finishing.
That's great. That is honestly super great advice. It's hard though to find, I would think, whenever you're looking for the college to go to pursue your, graduate degree. How did you, if you don't mind me asking,
Sure.
narrow down on where you're at right now?
How did I end up at UNC Greensboro?
Yeah.
That was another roundabout story.
Oh,
So
okay.
actually, my graduate degree is in musicology, and I wanted to reform. I wanted to make my mark by going into music history pedagogy. I hated people saying things like, I loved my music program, but I hated the theory and history. And I was like, I loved the theory and history. It helped me be a better performer. Dr. Pierce was my voice teacher, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh gosh, I remember Dr. Pierce.
And so I wanted to help make that better for other students. And I wanted to recreate kind of the same small liberal arts experience that I had that was so supportive. But, and so we moved down here when I got accepted to a PhD in musicology program at UNC Chapel Hill. And for a lot of reasons, I didn't find the culture there supportive. And there were other things that transpired that I was in a crisis mode where I went, I can't continue in this program. And there was one night that, in particular, I was working on a big assignment, and my husband was helping me edit it. And he looked at me and he said, Stacey, this isn't your best work. And I said, I know it's not my best work. I'm really frustrated with the lack of mentoring I'm getting and the situation here. And he looked at me and he just said, it's because you're not a musicologist, you're a teacher. And it was at that moment, I just went, that's why I don't fit. That's why I don't fit.
Yeah.
And Chapel Hill is about an hour from Greensboro, just to give you an idea of the geography there, because you wanted me to focus on place. And so I really made it a matter of thought and prayer. And I thought, well, where am I going to get where am I going to get things like teaching samples? How am I going to put my presentation together? And doors just began to open as I said, yes, this is where I need to be able to connect with several of the faculty at UNC Greensboro. They took a look at me holistically, seeing that I had a love and a passion for teaching and education, and I was able to make the transfer over to my program here. So that's how I ended up here.
That's amazing. I love that story. So it just goes to show you that if you don't feel like you're fitting somewhere, if there's roadblocks and you feel like there's push against it, maybe that's, like you said, time to just reevaluate. And why is this not working? And I feel like teachers can take that advice in their classrooms too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is this not working? Why does this seem so hard? Sometimes you just got to reevaluate decisions.
You do, and sometimes you also have to take the position that you are in this for the long road. You're in this for the long haul. You're making investments in your children for the long haul. And a lot of those investments don't necessarily show on an assessment or on a 9-week report card. You're making investments in them for a lifetime. I love what John Feyerabend says, that he says, we want to make tuneful, artful, beatful people. We're not trying to train everybody to be Carnegie Hall musicians. Yes. I mean, more power to you if you are, but we're training people.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. That's awesome. So, okay. So I know this next question is going to be a little tricky, because I hate when people ask me this. How do you find a good work-life balance with everything you have going on? I mean, do we ever achieve it really? But how do you, so maybe not a good work-life balance, or do you even have one? You can be honest.
I struggle with it. It is a continual struggle. A lot of those, for those of us who go into education, a lot of us find that we liked school, we did well at school. And so it's part of the reason we go into it. And so it can be very difficult to put realistic expectations on ourselves. One of the things I have had to do with myself is to invest in things that are caring for myself, body and soul. And sometimes in some seasons, I'm better at that than others. Some of that involves going to see a counselor to help get out some of those issues that come up, because there's a lot of them. My husband's a really good listener, but sometimes even he doesn't have quite as much time or insight. We all need a community to support us and go around us. And another thing that I've tried to do for myself is Mondays are my long teaching day, where I'm going with about 8 classes back to back. And so on Mondays, I try to just tell myself, no academic work gets done on Monday. It just doesn't. Mondays are for recovering afterward. And I think just managing your own set of expectations where you don't put the word should on yourself constantly. I should do this. I should do this. I should be. But give yourself room to grow as a teacher. Give yourself room to forgive yourself for not knowing the things that maybe you didn't know at first. That helps with the balance. My schedule is that I'm at Haw River teaching K6 and then 7-8 on Monday, but K6 on Monday and Wednesday. And I'm at UNC Greensboro on Tuesday and Thursday. And then Friday is a day to kind of catch up on all of that work and prepare for the next week.
That's good. Yeah. Like you said, I feel like sometimes just giving ourselves grace goes a long way. And for me, I'm very type A personality, and I like everything organized and neat and my schedule. And I've had to let a lot of that go with just being okay with the fact that sometimes everything won't get done on my schedule, and I can move it to the next day or the next week, and it'll get done eventually. And it's okay. It's okay to take nights off. It's okay if you can't do academic work on the days you're teaching. And I just think sometimes teachers in general are just too hard on themselves, because they feel like, oh, I have to do all the things. I got to get this ready. I have to have all my lesson plans done and this program completely completed a month beforehand. No. It's okay to have a balance. And not only that, you have to have time for your personal life as well.
You do. And we forget as teachers, we teach people how to treat us. We set the environment in our classroom. We teach our children how to treat us, to address us with respect. And sometimes we don't even turn that around and treat our own selves with respect. And you can't expect that's eventually going to spill over into your interactions with other people. If you're treating yourself with disdain, criticism, and hatred, it's going to spill over into your classroom and into your interactions with other people as well.
Oh, that is so good. And it's so true. No, I love that. You're just giving us all kinds of nuggets of wisdom today. Okay, so as we close, I want to ask you, this is something I love to ask, and it's really hard to come up with one piece of advice. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's just starting out in their elementary music teaching career, what would you want to share?
The first year really is as hard as they say it is. And that's okay. It will get better. The first year really is as hard as everybody says it is. Don't expect yourself to be a teacher with 10 years of experience going into your first year. Just don't do it. Set the expectation that you're going to do your very best. It's going to be hard, but that's okay. You can do hard things.
Oh, that's good. That is so good. And it's okay to be a beginner. We all had to begin somewhere with anything in life. We all begin somewhere. Well, Stacey, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add before we go?
I just think it's super cool that I found a fellow ORU alum and that you're doing this podcast for everybody. Like that makes my heart happy.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
And thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you so much for listening in to the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, I would love for you to review the show and leave a rating on iTunes. To find out more about how I can help you gain momentum in your elementary music teaching career, head to thedomesticmusician.com, where you'll find free downloads, courses, the blog, and so much more. Continue teaching music and never doubt the impact you're making each and every day in the lives of your students.